Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover. And today's book is by Linnea Sinclair, Accidental Goddess. And for a completely new thing, we're actually doing the sequel to a book in a subsequent week.
Yes. Last week, for the readers at home, we did Magic Net by John Deshauncy.
I don't get those things that people start writing sequels to other people's books. Like this week's book is by Miss Sinclair.
You know, it's not that unusual. Sometimes authors take over a deceased author's famous series. The Dune series was continued by Frank Herbert's son and a writer whose name escapes me, but he's notable for Star Wars novels. The Isaac Asimov Foundation series was continued by others, and of course, I think Lovecraft's books were continued by.
I think that makes sense. If there's enough of a market, then people are going to take over and do this. So yes, today's book is called Accidental Goddess.
Yeah, and it's I do love the cover, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let me ask you: did you like it?
Yes, I did. It was a good modern, urban fantasy book in the style that I like them.
Yeah, you do like those, don't you?
It's just like my dedefault pulp reading these days.
The Dresden Files, the Rivers of London.
Yeah,
I know that you're
Abram Aronovich, yes. Greg Schiffer is also a good author, and Richard Faust.
Wow, you are well read. Way to go, librarian.
It's also apparently the author of Gabriel's Ghost, which kind of sounds like it conjures visions of American Civil War era period plantation things. Gabriel's Ghost, it's like Victoria rode through the muggy hot summer or down the lane covered with Spanish moss.
Up to Sugar Snap Island.
Exactly, that kind of book.
One of those tragic romances where the two lovers are separated by the astral plane and mortality.
Oh. That doesn't sound like American Civil War era to me, but...
Okay, so not a literal ghost.
Well, it could be.
I was a little distracted, perhaps by some of this week's book. But before we get there, before we get to the book, I know that some of our readers may have been excited that we got to the point a lot quicker than usual, but unfortunately I'm going to have to reel us back in because I need your help. As some of our readers at home know, the Velociraptors, a species native to the library, I'm just catching all the readers at home up on the unnecessary lore, a species native to the library have surprisingly gone missing, and you suggested that I go on a quest to go and find them. Khaki, you called me, which may need to work on that. Well, I fashioned a little pith helmet out of dried leaves from the Duck Massacre Memorial Pond, but I want to actually show you my most important creation to date.
That sounds fantastic.
Yes,
bring it
on. Come with me. Now, try your very best not to scream.
Okay.
Because there are some demolished bookcases, but I preserved the books.
Okay.
It's just the bookcases that I needed.
Did you get the ones from IKEA or the hardwood ones?
The IKEA ones,
okay,
obviously. They're fresher and they float better, which may or may not come up. And also, I should add, it was actually your idea that after you said I should go on a quest to find the Velociraptors, then you suggested that I make the HMS Beagle 3.
Oh, yes, I did, didn't I?
Yeah, so here it is, and I call it the Threegle.
Ah, sorry.
I know. It has that effect on people. It is perhaps impractically large for the library. I mean, it barely fits under the partition ceiling.
Just out of curiosity,
yes.
where are you going to sail it? In the Duck Massacre Memorial Pond?
Yeah,
I don't think it'll fit. It might.
It'd be a tight squeeze. Yes. So I'm mostly prepared for every eventuality. The Threegle has, as you can see, wheels. It has treads. It has
a bit of a Kettenkrat then, isn't it?
A what?
Half-track motorcycle, basically.
Oh, that's adorable.
Front half motorcycle, back half tracked vehicle.
Yeah, so now we've got a boat / sort of optimistically hovercraft. I've got these turbines powered by bike, but I don't think I can pedal that fast. I'm quite pleased with the bike. It's been doing wonders for my figure.
It's like I was wondering where my exercise bike had gone.
It's kind of the exercise bike, isn't it? It's the library exercise bike, but it's serving a more noble purpose as the main power source of the Threegle. Actually, no, it's the main power converter. The power source is me.
Right, very well.
I also quite optimistically have some, components that should be able to turn it into a dirigible.
Okay.
So plastic bags taped together that maybe, hopefully, I'll be able to fill.
Well, you're not going to be able to make helium here.
The Threegle is so over-engineered that a lot of the IKEA wood might actually make good firewood, and maybe I'll be able to make it into a hot air vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Look,
with plastic bags, with a big fire underneath them.
You're going to just poke holes in every one of my dirigible ideas.
There's a fire suppression system here in the library, you know?
Well, it hasn't worked on the Medicine Lodge or my book teepee.
Yeah, that's a good point. I might have to have it checked.
Yeah.
I have to have stern words with the gnomes about this.
The little guys can't reach that high. What are they supposed to do? When I took all the ladders and put them up on the rafters. Wow, we're really hitting all the continuity here today, aren't we? I'm trying to sort of leave old territories behind and move into the great unknown. And that's why, it has some defensive capabilities.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
How many bookshelves did you take apart for this?
Counter question. How many bookshelves would be too many in your estimation?
Look, let me rephrase it. How many sections of the library now have the books piled up on the floor?
Well, counter question.
Yes.
How many would be too many? Two would be too many. Okay, you're not giving me a lot of wiggle room. Okay, 2 sections. I guess I can reorganize stuff. And if I take down young adult sexual awakening, supernatural, post-apocalyptic novels.
Yeah, that's about 4 shelves, if I remember correctly.
And Chinese.
No, there's going to be more.
All Chinese literature, which I think is about equal.
Really?
You'd think that after 6,000 years of recorded civilization, there's a huge trove of Chinese literature, but the amount of young adult, sexual awakening, supernatural, post-apocalyptic fiction that has been written in the last decade is just stupendous.
I blame Twilight.
A lot of these post-apocalyptic young adult stories aimed at teens, they're allegorically about specific teenage experiences. Like, if you take something like The Maze Runner, now I know this mostly because there's films. The Maze Runner is one for boys, and that's very much about summer camp.
Okay.
And the sort of Lord of the Flies, power struggles in an isolated boys' environment like that. Whereas something like Divergent is very much about your first day of high school and choosing the right group of friends. Or whatever
the jocks, the nerds, the greasers, okay, that's probably starting to show my age here because I'm pretty sure that's not what the current categories are. But you know,
yeah. No, well, that's. I wonder if the Breakfast Club was an early precursor to Divergent.
Yes, I've also seen memes where it's where each one of the characters is one of the modern social media characters. So you've got Tinder, you've got Twitter, you've got.
That's clever. And in that vein, we have this week's book. I mean, it was clearly aimed for a younger audience than the previous one, which, for the readers at home, took place in 1984 and involved a cyber goddess from the future recruiting a drug addict yuppie into an ancient digital war. And this is, rather more modern.
So the book title is Accidental Goddess, and charged with preserving an unreasonably complicated timeline, an ex-yuppie son seeks to protect and promote a rising Instagram influencer to help her cross the mythical 1 billion follower event horizon so she may ascend into cyber godhood.
So just reading the synopsis, I got immediately excited. I was left wanting more by the previous book, Magic Net by John de Chancy. Yes, very good. Because specifically, the plot line of how the cyber goddess was from the future wasn't resolved.
No, it was just kind of mentioned, and she was from the digital future and all that, but nothing specific. And I guess Miss Sinclair cottoned onto that and went I can work with this.
Yeah.
And revive the series and give it a bit of a modern twist. It's not a prequel, we'll get to that.
From a certain point of view.
It's time travels. There's no such thing as prequels or sequels or...
Yes, it's all just wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
Yes.
So I appreciate it especially that it started with a prelude that immediately tied into the previous book, starting at the currently abandoned Xerox Park graveyard.
Palo Alto, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably thereabouts. That's the cradle of digital civilization.
Yeah.
Where the desktop metaphor was invented, stolen by, borrowed by Steve Jobs and via Steve Jobs, Bill Gates as well. Where the great battle took place between Bradley Pitt, the yuppie from 1984, and the agent of the cyber goddess against Skrenta, who was there trapped in what would later become known as a web ring.
Caught up in a series of slowly degrading sites, having to subsist on fewer and fewer click counts as the time progressed, and web rings died the way of the dodo because Google came around. Well, yes, I suppose search engines in general.
When somebody says go the way of the dodo, I always sort of imagine, So they were progressively hunted for convenient meals by lazy sailors.
I guess a lot of dodos also died out because rats and stuff got introduced to the islands. And
rabbits, and then later sometimes foxes, depending on the voracious predators, those. Actually, I don't know that for sure about the dodo. I know about New Zealand, because New Zealand didn't snap off from a continent with an existing biosystem.
Yeah, so the only thing got there which could float there or fly there.
Yeah, because it was just a bunch of gunk that came out of the sea, as Douglas Adams said. So we see Skrenta breaking out of his web ring, and of course it's this creature from the cover of the first book
who has
wild hair, forked teeth.
That still bugs me. Those forked teeth. That was just weird.
Horrific cyber imagery, because it's not as if this creature actually has to eat anything ever.
Souls of people who stumble onto the dark corners of the web.
Fortunately, the book liberates us from these heady topics with a fairly good old-fashioned adventure where we're introduced to one of the heroes of the book, the son of the yuppie, as described in the synopsis.
Yes.
Leopold Pitt. I like that Bradley named his son after it was his drug dealer, wasn't it?
But still, I guess they were close, bonding with people on the couch over a few reefers, that'll...
I understand from some friends who partake that this is a bit of a stereotype.
Oh, yes.
Dealers behave like your friend, and it sucks. So they come over to your house, sell you drugs, and then stay in your house and smoke some of the drugs with you.
The ones you just paid for, right?
Kind of,
I never had that with ones that I...
Named after the drug dealer, Leopold Pitt has led a rather unfortunate life, I think, because he was indoctrinated from birth by his father about this bizarre future cyber goddess and all these prophecies and these great monsters, which as a child he had no trouble believing. But now,
started later in his puberty, he started getting to the area that Dad's a little bit kooky, and all this bullshitting that he's always doing, going on about Skrenta's return, and it's like, yeah, Dad, whatever, Dad, and it's like, we know that you had this amazing big cyber adventure, but I think you were just like, no, well, he doesn't believe anymore.
All that cocaine, which is something that he's realizing as a teenager. And it must be a very saddening experience to realize that someone that you've looked up to, as we look up to our parents sometimes, is not only fallible, but may have just been entirely wrong about what they taught you, and have wasted the belief and naivete that you had as a child.
That happens to all kids, It's like it just depends on what the subject is.
I think
it's not like you can cultivate naivete and belief. Well, belief, yes, but naivete is not really something that can or should be cultivated.
I mean, squander it, because naivete, naive. It literally means just born, right?
Is it?
You start off innocent and you start off gullible and wanting to believe stuff, and that can be used to amuse and entertain and enlighten.
No better example of that is shown than Calvin's dad in Calvin and Hobbes, who's always his dad is always like making up weird stories to tell Calvin and throw him off his guard. And my personal favorite would be the one where, how the whole world used to be in black and white, and somewhere during the 40s and 50s, everything slowly started turning to color. And that, you can tell that because, all the old photographs are all black and white. And then he goes but what about paintings? It's like, well, of course, paintings were black and white as well, but when the whole world turned to color, they turned to color as well. But why didn't the photos? Well, there were color photos of a black and white world, so they wouldn't turn to
color. Whoa.
And that kind of logic. It's like, that must be my favorite story from
that's brilliant.
Calvin's dad trying to mess with him.
Oh, good old Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah, yes. Unfortunately, Leopold Pitt's dad told him no such stories. He told him that, Skrenta's going to return. And we can sort of understand that just as this book starts, just as Skrenta is indeed returning from his collapsed web ring prison, Leopold has given up. His father passed away at some unspecified point in the past. He held the faith, he held vigil over the world, but realizing that the world was continuing to move on and that nothing that his father said was coming to pass.
No, absolutely.
And so, having abstained from anything to do with computers for essentially all of his life, in case Skrenta got his hands on him, he decides to make use of one of his college's computer labs and go on the internet and see what's happening, see if he can maybe make some friends. And I really related to that because that's what my early explorations of internet and various communities was like. It was in the university computer labs, getting up very early in the morning so I could
get the good seat with the monitor which was not visible for anybody else.
Yes, yes, that is correct. Yeah, you get what I'm talking about. I had my own little 3.5-inch floppy disk where I had all my programs to talk to my friends and store my files, and those were halcyon exploratory days.
Yes, that 3.5-inch thing was probably the only thing that was floppy, but
yes, well, 3.5-inch might have been underselling it also. Thanks for that. So
maybe when floppy.
Yes, that's right. There's showers and growers in computer science.
And then I guess he gets a bit of a quick introduction to internet culture. Pops on over to various social networks. Like, yes,
of course, that's where you invariably.
First, he gets around on TikTok, but that's
I didn't understand that reference at all. Like, maybe I'm too much of a. Do you know that I'm technically a millennial? I saw that Pew Research.
No, that's absolutely
I know.
bullshit.
Pew Research just redrew the lines, like Europeans arriving in Africa and redrawing all the borders.
It's absolutely bullshit. It's like. You are not a millennial by any stretch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't use millennial as a derogatory term, but I kind of like the definition that a millennial is someone who had their first orgasm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like first played with themselves, or who aren't into that sort of thing.
So basically, born in the early 90s.
I sort of mean that, like, by the early 2000s, the internet was a thing, and if that's when you were just developing your first, like, pre-adult consciousness at around 10, 11, 12, 13, whenever it happened for you, like that kind of awareness, and then the internet was already there, I think that's a pretty good descriptor.
That makes sense.
Because it's not like it's a value system, it's just what kind of a world did you grow up
but
in?
it used to be like boomers, and then Gen X, and then Gen Y, and then Gen Z, and then Gen Y and Gen Z kind of seems to have like disappeared now. Now it's just millennials.
I mean, Leopold Pitt is very much a millennial, but he's a naïf. Which is the singular of naive, by the way. N-A-I-S, and then the I has a little trema over it. Yeah, it's a very useful word. A naive who sort of feels his way around this new world. Obviously, he cannot escape the clutches of social networks like TikTok, which I don't understand.
TikTok.
I don't understand how it's. Yes, I know what it's a reference to. I just don't understand what TikTok does.
Well,
it's fun videos on there or something.
It's like basically what it's like what Vine used to be. Like those very short,
also
6 sound,
like collaborative videos,
but
or
longer,
something?
and it's social networking. It's owned by the Chinese who are data mining it, and like whatever.
It sounds cool.
Yeah.
But what I do like is that he immediately makes some friends there, and as detached as they are from reality, like he only knows them through their extremely hip influencer names.
Yes.
Yeah. Becoming quite close with Glamethyst, which I thought was, I mean, you know, he's on there as Leo Pitt for 2069, which, I mean, well, he could have done better.
I think I was supposed to say nice there at some point, but...
So he develops, much like Skrenta had his prison web ring, Leopold Pitt sort of develops I guess Stephen King would call it a quartet, like a little gang of friends who support each other. You have Glamethyst and Kimber Louise and Antonio Orlando, with whom he has some interesting.
I'm pretty sure there's stuff going on there that didn't made it into the pages.
Yeah, and he had an entirely platonic like bromance with his buddy Christopher.
Yeah, but it was a bit of a joke,
which is weird because he's the comp sci guy.
These days, you have to be successful in business, and you have to be gone to a good school, and you have to like go to the gym every day, because if you don't like overwork yourself, then you're not actually successful.
He has one half of his room completely clean and beautiful, and that's the direction in which he takes all of his selfies, and the other half is fucking trash because that's where he lives.
I think that's pretty much par for the course.
Well, except for the last member of their group, who's a bit of a breakout star, Jessica McSky.
How do you pronounce that?
McSky.
I mean, McSky. Yeah, I mean, I have that.
McSkyeGhe McSky.
I have that too often when I'm reading a book and someone has a very weirdly spelled name.
You get hung up on it, right?
No, my brain just goes like, that one. And it's just like, it doesn't even bother. It's just like, it pattern recognizes the word and just skips over it. It files it as like, that one.
So sci-fi novels with lots of alien-sounding names must be very...
I get really confused. Names are not my strong suit anyway, let alone if they get complicated.
So Jessica McSky is a bit of a breakout star in their group, because you know how... I mean, the big YouTube successes, besides video games, obviously, but for boys, it tends to be like pranks. Yeah. You know, they pull pranks. And for girls, it tends to be beauty.
Yes.
Tips and advice.
Makeups and makeup channels and showing off clothes. And it's a lot of work, apparently. I mean, that's what we learn in the book.
I can certainly imagine, yeah.
Yeah, go into town with like a big bag with 3 or 4 different outfits and then go to like find little places to shoot in little alleyways and picturesque other settings and change before them. And you do a series of shots and then you've got your shots lined up, which you can like spread out over the whole week, so you don't actually have to take them every day of the week. It's almost like making a podcast and having to like work ahead in that time.
Oh, that's a mugs game. Only fools would do that. Yeah. So Genesica has carved a little niche for herself in the form of, like, her channel is all about beauty pranks, which are tough to describe, but they were certainly interesting. Now,
it's kind of like, walk up on the street and slap a facial on someone.
What? Like a slap a facial on someone?
Well, yes. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what they're called? Facials? Like one of those face mask type things?
Oh, a face mask.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I wasn't talking about like...
Just go around the street and just slap a facial on someone. And you'll be as successful as Genesica McSky.
Yes. Ambushing people with like...
With makeovers.
Nail varnish. Yeah. When someone's standing in the subway and holding onto the pole and then she'll be kind of like... quickly do someone's nails and then
like fucking nail art and
exactly. And of course the trick is to do it without them actually noticing, so they'll often have one of the other boys coming along to like distract the person while she's like quickly doing the nails and keep the giggling, and then the other one is like shooting it like with their hidden cameras and everything.
As much as it's a sort of mean thing to pull pranks on someone, if you leave them with something beautiful that they can enjoy. I'm particularly impressed with how she managed to put lipstick on someone while talking to them. Like, that was really impressive.
I'm still not sure how they managed to pull that off.
I guess that's why Genesica McSky is such an enormous success, where she's rapidly approaching a number of followers previously unheard of. But you know what? She stays down to earth.
She's gone over 100 million. She's not given into any major deals. I mean, there's a little bit of like sponsor promotionships, of course.
But she goes for stuff that
I think she has a separate dorm room filled just with beauty products, which get sent to her by the various manufacturers. But there's no overt cashing into to big money.
Exactly.
It's like
there's no. If they're lucky, their logo appears. I mean, it's much like ourselves. Like, we don't use our massive reach to promote any product unless it's a friend of the library who has contributed, in which case we're happy to mention that. But so I appreciated that in this book, An Accidental Goddess by Linnea Sinclair, the character
we're not affiliated with in any way, shape, or form.
All Genesica McSky promotes Buster Wilde Werewolf, an extremely obscure but fantastic comic written by Scott Zellman, a cartoonist from way back in the day, and it's about a boring like office worker.
He's an accountant,
I think, or some shit, and he's a bit of a misanthrope by day.
And he's a gay werewolf by night,
who goes out clubbing and partying, and it's this fantastic exploration of like 90s gay culture, and it's super fun. Yeah, it was a webcomic way back.
We would never promote that was made into a book by someone at a later point of date, using high resolution scans from the original artwork.
We would
never promote something like that on our podcast.
Exactly, okay. So available on Amazon.com. Just look for Buster Wilde with an E. And I thought it was kind of appropriate because some of her friends, this is perhaps a bit of the supernatural seeping through. They are superhuman creatures themselves, at least. Yeah. So they appear to present themselves online, and we're supposed to think that it's that they're all just playing characters. Like I believe that Christopher is one of a mythical race of spampires. Who is one of the potential love interests for Genesica McSky.
Yes.
I mean, in proper young adult flirty romance fictions, there's always got to be like two potential love
she always
interests.
have to have like a choice, really,
between a vampire and
I was kind of hoping it would be Leopold Pitt that she would be going for, but I guess he's like destined for another role, as we later learn in the book.
He's still exploring things with Antonio Orlando, so that's not going to be it either. But it turns out to be Kimber Louise who fulfills sort of the werewolf role because she's a like and subscribe. Yeah, let's all just enjoy that one. Thank you, Twitter, for that joke. She suffers from like and subscribe therapy. That's right. I mean, she's not shitting. Like she actually does have the aspect of the beast on certain days of the the month.
She might be able. She has a little bit of the Askrenta's influence on her.
I hadn't considered that this was actually manifesting.
I think
her
so. I think that's definitely it.
On her TikTok channel, where her slogan is actually lick and describe, because
that's a different channel entirely. It's kind of like skirting the boundaries of the filters and like allowed to.
It's like one of those. It's like one of the what's the Korean thing of attractive people eating lots of things like
the massive feeding. I have no idea what it's called, but it's like going to a place and completely pigging out on. On
just describing the taste and the pleasure of food. Yeah, lick and describe.
Yes, I mean, have you ever had Korean barbecue?
Yes, I once had Korean barbecue.
I still need to experience that. But
actually, wait, I don't know for sure that it was barbecued because there was soup involved.
I think the hot pot thing.
No. You get a bunch of ingredients that you like, and then it's sizzled up. And then a bunch of soup is poured over it.
I think the Korean barbecue actually has like the open grill in the middle of the table. But
please lick and describe.
Well, I'm not going to lick and glowing grill. But let's not get sidetracked too much here.
And something we should really say about Ms. Sinclair. Like, I was just extremely disappointed by how long it took this book to get to the fucking point.
Well, the point being, spring break. Our hero, Leopold, goes back to his old family home and finds his dad's old computer.
Yes, the dusty original Macintosh computer in the leather valleys that he probably stole from Steve Jobs as well.
That's the one. He has to clean up some stuff that his dad left, and he actually sees like, let's see if I can fire this up. He turns it on, and we get this almost classical, like, getting sucked into cyberspace scene.
It was like in Tron, and there's the laser, and
exactly
it was made into cubes.
And he finds himself standing on the ruins of the Gates of Bill.
Yes,
it's like it's just a ragged wasteland which was left over after the boss fight of the last book.
Yeah, and now everything's in HD.
Well, it's all been mysteriously upgraded. I guess it's like because it's in the cloud or something, which this computer can somehow miraculously connect to. I mean, it always could do that. It always was a bit like vague in the first book.
Yeah, it's weird how a lot of the books we review are sort of vague in the details of their absurd plots. Yes, the Gates of Bill leading to the Geo Undercity, also from the previous book, where he stands and the horrific figure of Skrenta hovers overhead, preaching doom and despair.
Yes, turns out it's just like one of those web banners and a constant repeating message. But he has a massive scare about that. He's like nearly wetting himself with fright and running away.
I can certainly relate.
And then it loops after about a minute, and then he realizes it's just kind of like a pop-up ad. But it's
okay. Well, I know all about this.
Well, we're not talking about pop-ups again.
Well, and of course, this is when he summons his friend, the Spampire, Christopher.
Well, it's called Telegram. You can
exactly.
It's cross-platform. It works. It's like great. So he just shows up and he goes like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, this looks cool. How did you end up like this? And how did I end up like this? Yeah,
Samsung Gear VR strapped to my head when I wasn't paying attention. But and of course,
no, I'm for real here. And it's like, of course I'm for real. That's what everybody thinks. But no, I'm for real here.
Fantastic commentary in this book. And so, as a Spampire, he's actually able to make short work of all these banners, and between them, they're able to continue, soon encountering other obstacles. Now, of course, Skrenta has been stuck in a web ring from the early 90s, so he can't do much more than like gifs of burning skulls rotating and little men with pickaxes doing
under construction.
Yeah, exactly. So they summon their friends Kimber Louise and Glamothis, the like and subscribe, who also she has her own way of dealing with these horrors, and of course Glamothis has her various jewels she can use. It was really quite a cunning adventure, I thought.
A little bit of cyber adventure, and there's a little bit of like, trompsing around the internet with lots of references to current cultural things, which will probably mean nothing in another 2 decades or so, unless you're an internet historical archivist or something along those lines. And those people are even more boring than librarians, and I know about those. Turns out that great hero Leopold is now known in a role as the governess paladin.
Now, this is a bit of presaging that we as readers of the previous book can enjoy, because that's where the cyber goddess was known as the governess.
Yes.
A name that we never discovered the reason for, I don't think.
I think it's reference to a governor is one of the original computing devices. The original governor was the device which was used for the first water clock. It was a device that ensured that the water level always maintained the same in the basin, so that the pressure on the water running out of the clock maintained constant. Because like the problem with early water clocks was that like as the water level drops, there's the weight and therefore the flow rate changes. So the more advanced models had a separate reservoir, which filled the primary reservoir and always kept the level at the same thing. And that device is called the governor. It was later used in steam engines. It's the two spinny balls. That's called the governor.
On hinged sticks. So
exactly.
when the axis spins faster, they spin out more to the side.
And it slows it down. And I assume that's what the governor is, as being a
stabilizing force or an equalizing force.
Exactly. I think that's where
that's
it comes
very
from.
cunning. The last member of their party is, of course, Jessica McSky, who is finally summoned, and who, when she arrives in this digital world, she's not just largely herself like the other four friends.
She's like the shining visage that we see on the cover of the book.
Yes! She's gleaming and golden, and light shines out of her beautifully manicured fingernails.
And she's like, Leopold, how did you get here? And he goes like, well, I used my dad's Apple II. And she goes like, don't be ridiculous. There's no such thing as an iPhone 2. Jessica shows up in her glowing visage, and it turns out that they are tasked by the governor himself, who has tasked Leopold to elevate Jessica to the mythical level of her 1 billion Instagram followers. I think there is 4.5 billion people on. No, that's probably Facebook. It was something that has 4.5 billion people on it, right?
I saw something about a survey in Jakarta in Indonesia where people were asked, like, do you use the internet? And like 60% said no. And then those people were asked, do you use Facebook? And like 95% of them said yes.
Okay, because they didn't consider Facebook to be the internet.
No, that's Facebook.
Right,
what's
because
the internet?
That's the thing on their phone, yeah.
Yeah, hence,
yes.
I mean, Facebook and Google both have, it's called O3B. Stands for the other 3 billion.
Yeah.
And it's about various initiatives to get the other 3 billion human beings on Earth.
That's creepy. Yeah.
Onto the internet. I mean, obviously for
onto
altruistic purposes.
Onto their walled environment,
exactly,
preferably.
Exactly.
Yes. I mean, that's what Facebook tried with that thing in India, where they go, here, have this phone with free internet on it. That's pretty much limited to Facebook.
Yes, exactly. Now, there are also much more altruistic projects. I think one of them is about like using balloons or satellites in order to, like, a nation like Botswana, a fairly prosperous and politically stable nation in the southern part of Africa, I want to say, but
just northeast of South Africa.
Yeah, but I do believe it neighbors some other less stable nations, and so
Namibia?
Like getting a hard line through to Botswana with broadband internet is kind of hard, because that's to cut through contested territory where it might be chopped up.
Botswana, isn't that where the number 1 ladies detective agency takes place?
Yes, that's right.
Lovely series.
Miss Ramotwe.
Yes.
Sorry, Ma Ramotwe.
Yes.
Dumela Ma.
I love that. I never actually read the book, but the TV adaptation is brilliant.
The actors are fantastic.
Yes.
And the stories are so engaging.
And it's all small things. It's all just people things. It's nothing. There's nothing overly dramatic or anything going on. It's just people, like wives who think they're being cheated on. Like, I need a secretary. It's like, somebody stole my car. And it's like,
and it's just captivating.
Yeah, the stories are good, and the actors portray them brilliantly. So yes, go see that if you don't.
And it's a lovely exploration of a part of a world that I don't know much about.
No, there's that. Yeah,
that's how I learned. Do you know what the people from Botswana are called?
Boatswains.
So that would be bosun, but no, it's Motswana.
Motswana.
Because in the Tswana language, you do things with prefixes instead of suffixes.
Right.
Country's Boat, land of the Tswana.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the people of the Tswana.
Are then Motswana. Oh, that's very cool. So, yes, tasked by the governess as the paladin, he now undertakes the task to get Jessica elevated to the status of cyber goddess. And it is his job to beat Skrenta. He's infected the advertisement networks with the bidding on advertising space and the banner ads, and I guess being stuck in a web ring, which was one of the original banners, because all the websites which were part of the ring had the same banner. So the
jargon did get pretty thick. You'd almost think that Miss Linnea Sinclair has some connection with the digital ads world, because she was talking about how the Vastag was using the VPaid system, and how that's pretty soon going to be made obsolete by Simid.
I have no idea what all that means.
Yeah. So capitalizing on prebid.js, like all of that nonsense. Absolutely no idea what that kind of inventory versus throughput versus CPR.
No past life in marketing or advertising.
No. So while the previous book ended with a sort of boss battle. Now it's much more a battle for influence. Genesica doesn't directly battle Skrenta, but both of them are trying to seize influence at a higher rate.
And one is it doing through insidious little manipulation of financial streams and trying to grab everybody's attention with cheap banners and pop-up ads.
And the other is doing it through authenticity.
I hate that. Yeah. The secret to success is sincerity. Once you can fake that, you've got it made.
Yes, exactly. And it's working well for Genesica, but she's not quite there yet. But it turns out what she needed more than anything is someone to believe in her and, promote that belief, because it turns out that Leopold Pitt, he is very clearly a promosexual who just lives to, the thing that he enjoys most is to enhance the reputation of others, to promote his...
Bring out the best in them, make sure that everybody sees it and that they can, enjoy that.
And he has that in common with Antonio Orlando. They're both practicing promosexuals.
Yes, they bring out Genesica, who then, once she gets elevated to her cyber goddess's level, turns out to become the governess.
Yes, exactly. Thus completing
for those who hadn't seen that one coming yet.
Yeah. Thus finally completing the almost interminable time loop and actually validating for Leopold
that his dad wasn't nuts, which is gives him a little bit of closure and it allows him to come to terms with his misspent youth. That's actually a different book, but never mind.
I sort of like that. You have it ends with once again the defeat of Skrenta, the horrible cyber creature, and the gradual vanishing of Genesica as she travels through time as a cyber goddess, destined to one day meet Leopold's father.
There's a little bit of questioning about Leopold's actual heritage, whether or not... he did not get named after his mother that much, So
no,
it's
one day maybe that'll come up in a later issue when a future writer decides to pick up this series. I like that. We see Christopher and Kimber Louise and Glamethyst all return to their lives and de-digitize themselves and return back to reality.
There's still a lot of promosexuality going on.
As Antonio Orlando and Leopold decide to stay and explore this new cyber frontier a little more hand
intimately,
in hand.
Yes, handsy at least.
Bless him. I like a sweet teen awakening story.
Oh, absolutely. It gives you the happy fuzzies when it's exactly. It works out. There's enough drama and thing to make it exciting. There's something to be said for a good happy ending.
And they all discover something about themselves, like we talked about the Breakfast Club before, where they've learned about each other and also about themselves. Tristan discovers that as a vampire, he is uniquely able to rid the modern internet of banner ads wherever Skrenta raises his ugly head, and Kimber Louise and Glamethyst, they lick and describe their way through their life. Oh, wow. Just realized that one there, yeah.
Oh, yes. How are we going to rate this book?
When were we going to rate this book?
Well, I was going to say, how are we going to rate it out of an infinity loop? You can't really rate something out of that.
Okay, well, infinity, which is the infinity symbol, is just an 8 on its side. We can do 8 one more time. Because that's the whole thing with a time loop. You can always do it one more time.
That's a good point. You have a very good point. So we'll give it an 8 out of infinity.
Oh.
Well, that sounds a bit like...
That actually sounds a bit mean to
me. Yeah, it does.
So out of eight, how much would you rate this excellent book, An Accidental Goddess?
Oh, I would give it a 7 out of 8.
Yeah,
I liked
7.
it.
That's higher than our average. I'm sure someone's keeping track.
We too tend to review books we like.
Exactly. Because that's what we do on this podcast.
Yes.
We like and describe.
Yes, we do. Now, if only our listeners would like and describe as well, and leave us a little bit of feedback if we can.
You are such a promosexual. Go say it. Do it.
Yes. You can leave us. You can see us on Twitter. We're on Cover My Asscast on Twitter. covermyasscast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If there's something you don't like, tell us. If there's something you do like, tell your friends.
Yes. So yeah. And as we say every week, like and describe.
Yes.
That's what we should have called this podcast. So what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Yes, next week's book is by Catherine Devore. It's called Abraham Lincoln, Fuck Lord of the Moon.
That covers it.
Presidential Fuck Machine number 3.
Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover. Catherine Devore, Abraham Lincoln, Fuck Lord of the Moon, Presidential Fuck Machine number 3.